Welcome to the Limitless Podcast. The Limitless Podcast is centered around exactly that, being limitless. Hunting, fishing, fitness, nutrition, adventure, disabilities. What may be covered during the Limitless Podcast will be, well, limitless. Stay tuned for this episode of the Limitless Podcast.
Limitless fans, great morning this morning. Have a guest from one of my staples in the outdoor industry that I use. I use their equipment religiously for my backcountry hunting. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a dead giveaway on who this company is and what they provide us. But we'll start out with the show sponsors really quick before we dive into content, because this will be a shorter episode today, just due to time restraints for myself and the guests today. So Hunting Day Coffee is 10% off any order of Hunting Day. That's Be Limitless 10. We have Phelps Game Calls, 20% off one order. It's not one item, it's one order, and that is Be Limitless 20. Go to their website. On Point Adventure Foods for your freeze-dried backcountry backpacking hunger needs. Pennsylvania-based company. This is, man, I can't say enough about On Point Adventure Foods. It's clean, it's low sodium, it is home-cooked food in their approved kitchen. I love these guys. It's 10% off any order from On Point Adventure Foods. That's Be Limitless 10. And they will do custom orders for you. So if you want the Limitless style, at least that's what I call it. I send them a tub of collagen protein and I tell them what meals I want plussed up, and they will put in scoops of collagen too. So I send them plain collagen and they dump it into my meals. And their strawberry shortcake is, again, I said this in the previous episode, it is redonkulous, and I add collagen to that as well. Vortex Optics, 25% off Vortex Optics through eurooptics.com, because Vortex does not deal directly with consumers. So if you go to eurooptics.com, any Vortex product there, it is VTX LMTLS25. And then I have Wilderness Athlete. I'm sipping on a little bit of their Huckleberry hydration right now. That's 20% off any Wilderness Athlete product on their website, and that's Be Limitless 20. And then my good buddy out of Maryland with his boutique hot sauce, that is the Love Sauce hot sauce. It's 10% off a $12 order or more. That's Be Limitless 10. Then we have two more. Venandy holsters. This is the holster that I use with my bino harness. Originally, Brian started making these for Badlands bino harnesses, but now he can make them pretty much for any harness on the market. And it tucks that sidearm right in between your chest and your bino harness. He makes it for an ambidextrous draw. It's it is the best retention system on the market. That is Venandy holsters. That's Be Limitless 10 for 10% off of that order. And then last but not least, our newest sponsor confirmed for this year is Stick It Magnetic Gear, and it is their magnetic rangefinder strap. That thing goes with me everywhere. If I'm wearing my rangefinder, I have that magnetic strap on my body as well. And that is Be Limitless 10 at Stick It Magnetic Gear for their rangefinder strap. Again, guys, there are no kickbacks to the Limitless Podcast from those sponsors. This show is paid for out of my pocket, so I can keep my content on the baseline of what I believe in. And I am not paid to provide you with any opinions or any reviews on gear. This is all based off of what I use, what I believe in, who I trust, and who I purchase from. So again, those codes are purely for your benefit, so please use them. So ran through those pretty quick today, but I'm sitting here today with Brad Brooks, the owner, CEO, founder of Argali Outdoors. Brad, welcome to the Limitless Podcast.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having me, man. It's really Sorry, this was such a difficult scheduling task on my end, but it's really good to be here and good to see you. And I was trying to take some notes while you were running through your sponsors because I'm in the market for some of those products. So
I can send you all the information when we're done.
yeah,
Certainly.
yeah,
It's a no scheduling. That's not a big deal. Everybody has busy lives. I'm just glad that I'm thankful that we were finally able to shake hands and meet in person in Salt Lake at the Western Hunting
yeah.
Expo this last year. It's just, you can email people, you can text people, and just getting in person and shaking hands. I've been using your products now for a couple of years and huge fan, and being in person and being able to share some of our similarities, outlooks in the outdoor industry and things that we like to do, and maybe things that aren't always the most popular thing to do. And then talk about gear, man, it's priceless. You can't get away from the benefits of face-to-face conversation with people.
Totally agree, man. Yeah, I think if you're in this industry, it's usually because you have a passion for some part of it, something or all of it when it comes to hunting. And I think for me and for you as well, it's clear that we both have a pretty deep passion for different types of hunting. And then also on the gear side, I love this stuff. It doesn't feel like a job to me most of the time. Doesn't mean it doesn't come without a lot of normal job stresses, but I love this stuff. I didn't plan my life out this way, but I certainly can't imagine doing anything different at this particular point in time.
So when did you start out working in the outdoor industry?
Um, well, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I did nothing else in the outdoor industry prior to this company that I started. So in 2015, we made a film. So the original iteration of Argali, there was no intent to create a company. It was just we were very passionate about had an idea for a film, and we wanted to make one film. That film was called Chasing Ridgelines, but there was no intent to create a company whatsoever. We didn't have our act together. And I was, my old career is like my background's in economics and business. So I had nothing to do with this world, but I've been hunting my whole life, grew up in Idaho. And so we wanted to make the film, we made the film, and then there was some that got some attention. We made another film, and then after that, it was really where we decided that there was a business. I decided there was like a business here somewhere because I was getting lots of questions about why I use certain gear, and that really just led me down the path of starting Argali. But prior to that, I had zero experience doing anything in the outdoor industry other than just being someone who spent a lot of time outside. So I
Okay.
didn't come up in this world. I don't have a background in gear design, even though it feels like I wish I did at this point, given what I do. But it's all just sort of happened one step at a time, and I've just been following my nose, doing what interests me and doing what I love, every step along the way.
So prior to launching your first shelter, what shelter did you use?
Boy, I had a bunch of them. So I am a bit of a gear nerd. So I had tried everything from Kafaru, Seek Outside, MSR shelters, Black Diamond shelters. I mean, I had a bit of everything. So I just naturally was just I'm curious, right? So I would, buy things or borrow shelters, or I'd hunt with friends who had something that was different than what I had. So I had the luxury of just trying out lots of different shelters.
Okay. I used and abused a copper spur.
Yeah.
That was my favorite shelter for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I went on an elk hunt with a buddy of mine, and we had never hunted together. We had met, and we figured out we were going to go hunt elk together, and it was in Idaho. And
Hmm.
when he and I both when he arrived at the airport in Idaho Falls to pick me up, and we went to a hotel the first night and we started running through our gear. I was unpacking my airline bags and repacking it for packing in. And we found out that we were both running the Big Agnes copper spur. And I had the hotel vestibule on it. And I loved that shelter. And he was an experienced through hiker. He had through hiked the Appalachian Trail and just put hundreds of miles and hundreds of hours inside his copper spur. And it's just that shelter is just so comfortable. It's so cozy. It's almost bulletproof. I mean, it's a great piece of gear. And the following year, he sent me a message with a photo saying, "Hey, I've shifted shelters. Check this thing out." And it was an Argali shelter.
Ah,
And it was the Owyhee.
okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm curious. So I nerded out on the Rincon and the Owyhee. And I originally bought your Owyhee because
Okay.
I have my copper spur. So it's a little bit larger, it's a little bit roomier, especially with the hotel vestibule on it. I have some really good real estate. But if I really want to go fast and light, and Brad, I was really targeting backcountry turkey, which we're going to talk about here in a couple of
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
And I bought that Owyhee for those quick 1 or 2 night punches into a wilderness area to hunt and or to do a quick turkey hunt, overnight turkey hunt up into a wilderness area. So I went that with that Owyhee. And the other thing that I realized when I really started, so I ordered it and then I hunted with it. And I've actually slept 2 guys in that thing.
That's incredible that
Yep.
you had two
It wasn't
guys in that thing.
it wasn't because I wanted to, it's because I had to. So it's
Okay.
in one of those have to moments that you
Yeah,
figure it out.
sure.
And we slept 2 guys in it. And I had done the homework on it. And when I really started comparing the Rincon and the Owyhee, they're so close in weight, yet what you gain in real estate is worth the little bit of pack space and the few ounces that are difference. I mean, that Rincon is so spacious. And so I ordered the Rincon as well. And that has become the Rincon. And now I have inserts for both. And I have the Skyline stove. And I mean, I still have my Big Agnes, and I've put it up for sale a couple of times just because I don't foresee myself ever using it again. But at the same time, that shelter was such a big part of my life. And I know I'm not saying that my Argalis are not dependable, but that I know that for a backup shelter, that Big Agnes is such a high quality and dependable piece of kit. I
Yeah.
struggled getting rid of it, but at the same time, it's sitting in a plastic tote just going to waste. And
Yeah.
I want somebody else to go make memories in it, go fill
Yeah.
tents out of that tent. So I've struggled with that. But dude, both the Owyhee and the Rincon are their home run hits.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll be honest, so our evolution as a company has been that, I head up all of our gear design, and I have some people that I work with to help translate the designs into like tech packs for manufacturing, but all the ideas for the sizing, the feature set, the way they pitch, all sort of originates with ideas that I've had about the way I want tents to work and all of our gear. So I appreciate hearing that. I would say one of the things that I didn't anticipate, particularly with tents, is the amount of joy I would get from hearing how other people are using them, because these things take years to develop and bring to life and get out into the world. And there's nothing I really enjoy more than hearing about how other people are using these things that I created mostly for myself. It's hard to know if you have an idea and you want to bring it to life, if that idea is going to have any value to anybody outside of anybody, right? Because you're just like, well, I'm just making this thing for myself. I don't know if other people will like this thing too. So anyways, I appreciate hearing that. And the ring con with a half insert is perhaps my favorite setup as a backpacking tent, just in terms of the amount of space you get in it and how you can use it early season, you can use the late season. So it's a really versatile setup. The Owyhee is such a great small run and gun shelter. I mean, I use that early season for a lot of like backcountry backpack, like mule deer hunts in particular, sometimes backpack elk hunts. But I do like the space of the ring con in particular. So, but yeah, anyway, so it's great to hear you say that. Appreciate the fact that you've used the tents and genuinely like them. And I know it's authentic from you because you paid for them. We didn't give them to you or anything. And so it feels very genuine. So thank you.
I paid, I mean, full price. So for any listeners,
yeah,
like I don't get a discount from Argali. And I mean, I've signed up. I recently found out that you have a military discount, but I've yet to even utilize it. So all of my Argali products, I have 3 Argali products. I've paid full price for them. So I want all the listeners to know that. And I love them. So I'll keep this story pretty quick, pretty brief, so that we can get on to other content. But this is valuable for people to hear, especially if you're new, or if you think that you want to be a backcountry hunter. You never know what you're going to get into. You never know what the wilderness is going to throw in your direction. And especially when it's somebody new. So it was a November hunt in the Appalachians, and we were going in for muzzleloader season. Had a guy that wanted, and he's a good friend of mine. He's a great man. He wanted to go on a backcountry hunt. So I invited him. There would end up being 3 of us, and I was showing up the first day, because I always like to have a little bit of alone time. This gentleman was coming in the second day, and then another one of my hunting partners and a guy that I backcountry hunt with a lot, he was coming in the third day. So I rolled in, went hunting, had success, harvested beautiful 7-point. I was with the Owyhee, and oddly enough, my buddy had my ring con, and he was bringing it up, and he was going to pack it into camp. And the guy that was showing up on the third day, the guy that was coming in day 2 was borrowing my Big Agnes. So I had the Big Agnes in the back of my truck for him. He showed up on day 2 as I'm packing whitetail off of the mountain. And I get back in the evening. I finally get my critter all the way back to camp, and my buddy is not there yet. And he should have been there. And I'm messaging him on his Garmin, and he's not responding. So I stripped down, and we had a serious water shortage. So I figured, well, I'll just go back and get water as well. So I hit the trail, and I met up with him about a mile down the trail. It was a 3-mile trek in from the trailhead to where we were off trail pitched. And he was getting crushed. All of our packs said this. I mean, there's so much to this story. All of our packs, all 3 of us, were triple-digit packs coming in because of the amount of water we were packing in, because the closest water source was 1.5 miles away from our camp.
Yeah.
So we came in heavy, and it was crushing him. So we finally get to the pitch site, and this gentleman doffs his pack, and he lays down on the ground. I mean, it crushed him coming in. It was far worse. It's not what he was expecting.
Yeah.
And as he's laying there on the ground, and I'm watching him, and I'm just like, okay, he's older than I am. I'm 52, he's 57. And he gets over on his hands and knees, and it's like he's going to start getting up, and then he turns his head and he looks at me. He's like, oh my gosh, Aaron. Oh no. I'm like, what's the matter? What's the matter? He's like, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? He said, I didn't get the shelter out of the back of your truck. And Brad, I'm a retired military guy, special operations. I take my backcountry hunting really serious. I had gone through loadouts, prep work, like all this stuff. And there's some things that you just don't forget. Food, water, shelter are just absolute necessities, right?
Yeah.
Leave your weapon in the vehicle, but
Yeah.
food or shelter, those are no-nos, right? And I thought he was joking. He was not. The shelter was in the back seat of my truck.
Oh
So
my
it was,
gosh.
well, 6 mile round trip to go get that shelter for him. I had packed in the day before, triple digit pack coming in, got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, climbed the mountain, got in a tree, harvested a whitetail, packed that whitetail off the mountain, went back down the trail to find him, came back into camp. And I'm looking at the setup, and there's a couple things that I always carry with me. One is I like a ground tarp. So I have like a Tyvek Go Hunt, makes their little Tyvek tarp that has their logo on it. I love that thing. It's inexpensive. And so I always have that. And I always carry the Killing Pad by Rack Addicts. It's mine's orange, so it's multi-purpose. It's a really light, it's a 6 ounce 6x6 ripstop tarp. I always have that as well. So my buddy had his sleeping bag. I had the Owyhee. And I said, look, we have three choices. You go get your shelter. I'll go with you. We're going to suck it up together. We're going to go do another 6 miles and get your shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you can take my Go Hunt ground tarp and you can wrap up in my Rack Addicts Killing Pad in with your sleeping bag and just sleep out by the fire pit. Just lay down and go to sleep. I mean, I've done it 100 times. It's not a big deal. It's not supposed to rain. According to Garmin, it's not supposed to rain.
Yeah.
I said, I've got a rain fly. There's a little tiny bit of rain fly on this Owyhee. Said, your feet might be sticking out, but we're going to be real close to each other, like breathing each other's breath through the insert. But if you want to slide under the rain fly of this Owyhee, you still wrap yourself up in the tarp in the Killing Pad. So that's what he did. So we utilized those key pieces of gear, and he slept through the night comfortably. His bag wasn't wet. We didn't have to deal with a wet bag the rest of the trip. He packed out and picked up a shelter, and everything ended up being okay. But yeah, that's why we had to use the rain fly on the Owyhee and sleep two guys in that shelter. And it's feasible. Now, if it would have been, 10 degrees outside, I don't know how his feet would have fared in that scenario. He may have had to try to curl up in a ball. Not sure. We would have survived. But yeah, that's
crazy. Yeah. I think you're the first that I've ever heard of to sleep two in the Owyhee. But the nice thing about our one piece shelter, the Owyhee, it is bigger than most one person tents by quite a bit. So it has a lot more, just a lot more room inside. So it is feasible. You can kind of move your pole around. It's sort of set up with that 1/3, 2/3 split. So the pole or the trekking pole that you use to pitch it sort of splits the space between 1/3, 2/3. And you can kind of cant that pole left or right if you want to create more space or less space in one side of the tent. And then the other thing you can do too, which I don't know if you guys ever talked about this, but even with that tent, you can pitch it much taller than you're supposed to in a pinch if you want to create even more space and kind of use it almost like an elevated tarp. It requires quite a bit of finagling with the guy out points in order to really do that well. But you can create even a little bit more space if you ever run into that situation again. So yeah, but yeah, that's impressive. That's quite the story.
It was an interesting trip. It was an interesting trip, man.
But you got a deer. That's all that matters in the end, right?
Yeah. It's hanging on the wall downstairs. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah. No. I'm trying to think if I've ever had somebody forget something as key as that. I mean, I'm a list guy. I have Excel spreadsheets because I think I remember everything, and I'll remember most everything. If I just start grabbing stuff, I have my gear is pretty well organized, but depending on time of year and what I'm doing, I might forget something. And usually it's going to be something moderately important, or I'm just going to be annoyed to not have it. I just went on which I know we'll probably talk about. I just got back from a turkey hunt and I almost forgot a sleeping bag of all things. because, and it was because I was just like, I've got 2 young kids. I was dealing with like, I was trying to leave in the middle of the middle of the afternoon. I had to like, in the morning when I was packing, I was like, getting lunches ready, getting them out the door. I'm thinking about work and what I got to get done before I leave. And I'm like throwing stuff in the truck. And, it's not like it was last minute, but for whatever reason, I almost forgot a sleeping bag. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but, yeah, it happens. So now I have to have a list and I have to check everything off or else it will get forgotten.
So I'm going to share one more quick story while we're sitting here together. I tagged you guys in it. I think Josh is probably the one that saw it. But this is another fun Argali equipment story of how you can use your gear in a pinch. So again, elk hunting, Idaho, last September, and was way up on a ridge line, miles from camp, trying to find elk. Sat down for a quick lunch and threw everything back together to get on the move. Everything was great until we got back to camp that night, fired up the stove, got ready to eat my meal, and my titanium spork was gone.
Ooh, yeah.
I had
Oof.
left it up on the log we were sitting on in the afternoon, and that's where it still is unless the wind's blown it away.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in camp with an on-point adventure food meal and no eating utensil. So I pulled 2 Argali tent stakes out of my Rincon and I used them as chopsticks.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And
Never done
and
that
I
before. I love
and
that.
I ate my meals the rest of that trip with Argali tent stakes.
Dude, that's a good one. That's also a first. You know what? I need to start sending you our prototype stuff. Just be like, hey, figure out a way to use this we're not thinking about right now.
It's
Chopsticks.
really when you spend enough time under pack load,
Hmm.
things are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
One of my, I call them isms, Brad. One of my isms is calm breeds calm, right? So
Hmm. Sure.
when you get hit with a problem,
Hmm.
if you panic, if you get angry, if you get frustrated, the blinders go on, right? It's like putting on a gas mask. Guys can shoot great, they can run great, they can fight great. Put them in a gas mask. Whole world changes, right? It's like putting the blinders on a Clydesdale. Weird things just happen. And when we're in the backcountry, the same thing will happen when you're hit with really hard adversity. And if you stay calm and think through the process, you can make your gear do some really cool things when you want and need it to. You just have to use a little ingenuity.
Yeah. That's you made me think of something. This is something that um I I do agree with you a lot that I've seen enough people in stressful situations and you get to really see that some people handle those situations well and they can like rationalize and think calmly and others just are not for whatever reason. I don't know if it's an innate thing. But one of the things that I do a lot of other than hunting is rock climbing. And I've done a
Mm.
lot of things that I won't do now that I have kids. I still do a lot of rock climbing. I climb, climber train for climbing, 2 to 3 days a week. But I can distinctly, I'll tell you one quick story about that because I can distinctly remember being in, I don't know if you're familiar with Red Rocks outside of Las Vegas.
I am.
Yeah, so I've done a fair bit of climbing there on some of the longer routes in the in the back of those canyons. And there's this one route called Fiddler on the Roof, and you have to you read about a route in a guidebook and you don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's like sometimes they have protection, sometimes there's the guidebook is wildly off. And in this particular route, it was well within our this guy was climbing with both of our abilities physically, but it was absolutely terrifying from a just a protection standpoint. And so the third pitch, you traverse right for about, I don't know, 100 feet over the lip of this roof that's about 50. It's a straight roof that goes back about 50 feet.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, the terrifying thing about a roof when you're traversing it isn't that you're going to die if you fall because we're roped in together, but that if you fall, you're going to be hanging in space, and the only way to get back up is to press back up your rope. So you really don't want to do that, because that's a shitty situation to find yourself in if you're pressing up a rope, because then if you fall after you get to the top of your prusik, now you're taking a dynamic or a
Yeah.
relatively dynamic fall at that distance. So just not an ideal situation. So we both do the traverse pitch, and now we're committed. We cannot rappel out because of the roof. We'd be hanging in space, and we need like a 400-foot rope to rappel down to the bottom. And the guy I was climbing with was just wigging out. Like, I'm very careful with who I climb with, but I thought this guy could keep his stuff together, and he just was absolutely losing it. And there was no way to go but up. And we had, I want to say, 6 or 7 pitches or rope lengths to go to get to easier terrain. And I ended up having to like lead every pitch, and it was sketchy. Like, there just wasn't a lot of protection the entire time. And every time I get to the anchors, I was just like, thank God I made it to the anchors. Like, because there was some, I mean, I was looking at like 50, 60-foot falls at some point, and on hard terrain, not easy terrain, hard terrain. And it's just one of those moments where you just got to like block out the fear and just like deal with the situation. And so to me, like, those are the situations where it's actually terrifying. Like, those are tough situations to deal with mentally, where there's real consequences. So in some ways, like, backcountry hunting problems feel like they don't feel like serious consequences. Like, so when I run into a situation like you do, where it's like, I don't have a fork, like, I'm not freaking out. I'm just like, okay, well, this is annoying. What am I going to do to figure this out? But for some people, if the hardest thing you've ever done is that, it can really put you off, right? It can really make you scramble your brain a bit to make it hard to just like think rationally. But that's also the time, I spend a lot of time outside and a lot of time backpack hunting, and those are where all of my best ideas for gear have come from, because you run into, if you're really paying attention to what's going on, and you're really paying attention to the gear you're using, what is working, what isn't working, and making yourself aware of what's going on, you can really have some good ideas, or at least I have. So yeah, I can relate.
Yep. And it's perspective, and so that can lead us into, this might be a quick conversation. We only have probably about 10 minutes left. But you backcountry hunting or backpack hunting, because I mean, if I'm hunting under a backpack, I call it backcountry hunting.
Yeah.
I can find pockets of real estate in the Appalachian Mountains that the terrain gets me away from people. I've packed in 0.8 miles, I've packed in 3 miles, and I've had the woods to myself. And I'm getting the same experience that I get when I go out west. And I grew up in Washington State. So I started backcountry hunting in 1996 in the Cascades and the Blue Mountains. So
cool country. Yeah, cool country.
Beautiful country. For me, it's the mindset. It's where I can go to have the experience. I don't have to have an 8 mile pack in, or tens of thousands of forests to be in, because I've ran into dudes packed into Idaho, and I've not ran into dudes packed into the Appalachians. So it's where you can get it's that trip, it's that whole experience, but that's becoming the thing. Like, with all of YouTube and all of the incredible films that are coming out, it is becoming the thing to do. Guys that have never done it, they want to do it. It's the hotness. So people are putting all their eggs in that basket, and some guys that have never done anything like it, they see something on film that they don't see all the challenges and all of the learning and everything that has come before that really cool trip.
Yeah.
And they go out and they do things, and they might have a miserable experience, or they forget something, or they've never been in that mindset. Some guys have never hunted a piece of property where they're not a couple hundred yards from the truck. You find out really quick, some people aren't comfortable in the woods in the dark. There's so many unknown for people. And that leads me to a conversation that I really wanted to have with you. And maybe we're going to have to do this again, but that's why I backcountry turkey hunt. It's just so much fun. And I think it's a low barrier of entry for a person that wants to go on an elk hunt. And I say that because elk hunting is so expensive
Yeah.
and it is becoming so competitive. So you can't, so hard to get tags now for a non-resident guy, but you can hunt turkeys pretty much everywhere over the counter.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same things that you're doing in elk season, you're doing in turkey season if you're doing it at the backcountry. Now, 100%, if you're sitting on a field edge in a blind, your turkey hunting is nothing like September archery elk at all, other
Yeah.
than your calling. But if you
Yeah.
pack on your back and you pack into a wilderness area, and if you've done some scouting and you go out and start chasing birds, and you're using all the tools and techniques to go pursue that bird, and you're calling and communicating with that bird, you're getting a very realistic view of what a backcountry archery elk hunt will be. You're just not going to pack out 350 pounds of meat.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think turkey hunting for me was an acquired taste over time, but I just got back from a turkey hunt. Well, we didn't backpack in, but we did a remote camp and we day hiked, but we were putting on, some days 12 miles a day hunting for turkeys in the mountains, not hunting them in fields, not hunting them, which to me is not my ideal way to hunt turkeys. And no offense to anybody that enjoys it that way. I don't mean it that way. It's just the thing I love about turkey hunting is the same thing I love about hunting archery elk, which is you can just wander around the mountains. You're following gobbles the same way you're following bugles. I know this is like a trope in the West, comparing turkey hunting to elk hunting, but it absolutely, there are a ton of parallels. The only difference is you have just sort of a jellyhead angry bird gobbling its brains out as opposed to a bugling bull elk. But I had never thought about it as a stepping stone to an archery elk hunt, or maybe a working man's
Yeah,
archery elk hunt or a working man's elk hunt. But that is a really good way to think about it. And, particularly because most people don't want to work very hard for turkeys. If you're willing to put just a tiny bit of effort in, you can really have a place to yourself if you want to, which is really, and it's really fun to do. Again, I didn't grow up loving to do it, but probably, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I really started doing it a lot and it just became really enjoyable. Um, and I do think too, just to riff on your point, that I think can be in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't have to be 10 miles, even 5 miles in to be a wilderness experience. You can be a half a mile in, you can be a mile in. But the point is, you're just kind of getting away from everybody else a little bit, enough to just sort of be immersed in whatever place you are at, to enjoy that place and not be distracted by everything else going on. And it's a very different style of hunt than when you're day hunting or hunting from your truck.
absolutely. It gives you a whole new perspective.
It
And
does.
yeah, and I've had people say, well, I don't have a wilderness area, or I don't have anywhere that I can even go practice. Because I'll tell people, it's you practice with your archery equipment. You practice every phase of your hunt. If you're going to go on your first backcountry hunt, you need to go practice that. Go to a state park. Go
Yeah.
hit a trailhead.
Yeah.
And if that's too far away, I'm like, on a Friday night when you get home from work, load your gear up, go on a 5 mile hike with all your gear on, then go in your backyard and pitch your camp and sleep in your backyard. You
Right.
try to
Right.
replicate what you're going to do at some level, because you need to shake your gear out. You need to know what it feels like. And I'm like, you can train physically as hard as you want, but that training is usually an hour, 2 hours. Maybe you go on a 3 mile rug with your pack. Then you come home, you take all your supplements. Maybe you take a salt bath. You're getting
Yeah.
your ice tub, take a hot shower, whatever, and then you get a good meal of whatever you want, and then you go sleep in your nice soft bed. I'm like, your training evolution that day was a couple of hours at most. And I'm
Right.
like, if you leave the vehicle and pack in, there's no recovery. Truly, there's no recovery until you come out and get to a hotel or get home again, because
Yeah.
you're humping all day long, and then you might have a sleeping pad. Some of them are really, really Gucci now, but you're still sleeping on the ground.
Yeah.
and your body is never truly recovering. Like I'm old and I have sleep apnea, so I don't even get quality sleep at night. Right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that makes it even worse because sleep is where you truly recover. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
rabbit hole. It is a true rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's enjoyable. I think it's also something that, again, because nobody is really doing it. I mean, I don't, other than you, I don't really know anybody that's packing in for a turkey hunt. I mean, I know that I'm sure people are doing it in my home state of Idaho here, but it's not something you hear people talking about at all. And so even if you don't have, what I would say to people too is like, you don't have to have a big wilderness area or a designated wilderness area, federally designated wilderness area. Just any place that is wild to you, you can find some closed roads, that are gated. Um, I don't know the rules in every state, but like here, like a lot of our roads are gated or closed down in the springtime when they're snow covered. So there's lots of ways you can get a quote unquote wilderness experience without having a designated wilderness. And then I do agree, you have to, in order to really learn, you have to go out and do the thing,
Yeah.
because it does seem easy if you watch videos of people doing just backcountry stuff. It seems a lot easier than it actually is. And that just as a small anecdote for that, when we did one of the films we did, we floated Middle Fork of the Salmon and hunted deer.
Mm,
And it's a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty dangerous, advanced way to go into the backcountry. You're talking about a 3 million acre wilderness. There are no roads in or out. The only way in or out is by helicopter, airplane, or you float the river out for, I don't know, 100 miles or something. It's a long ways. Um, after we put that film out, a lot of people who had never been on a river in their life, never been on never been in a big wilderness before, ask me about just like the logistics and commenting. A few people in particular stuck on my mind because they had never backpacked in their life, and they were like, "It didn't seem that hard from the video. It looked like it wasn't that bad. Like it looked pretty easy. Like I think I could do that." And so I was like, and I told all of them, I was like, first of all, I have been rowing a boat my entire life. I know how to handle water. I know how to read white water. I didn't talk about it in the video, but that shit's dangerous. People drown on that river every single year. And in the wintertime, it's unforgiving. So if you don't know what you're doing, like this isn't just like a casual river outing, because there ain't nobody there to help you. But I think there's this perception because you watch it, you're like, I can do that. I think we're all very optimistic about our capabilities. Um, and it's great. I think it's great to have confidence, but also you need to be a little realistic. A little dose of reality is probably a healthy thing, especially when it comes to really big wilderness trips.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, sir, we're getting pretty close to that hard stop. Um,
Yeah.
this went quick. Really enjoyed it. Why don't is there anything new that you want to throw out? A new piece of gear that you want to highlight really quick, or is there something that you're getting ready to launch? And then share with us where people can find you.
Yeah. Argalioutdoors.com, Argali official on Instagram. You can find us, or Argali on YouTube if you want to check out any of our films. We just came out this year, as you mentioned, with a sleeping bag. I'm super proud of that bag. I wanted to create a bag that was literally as good as anything else on the market that existed in the world. And sounds like a lofty target, but I do think we did it, in terms of the quality, the warmth, the weight ratio, all that. Um, and yeah, I actually have some really exciting things coming up here. I can't talk about them publicly just yet, but we have a couple big new categories that we're working on, or one new big category that we'll announce sort of late summer. And then I have some new tent designs that we're working on right now that we'll talk more about here later this year that are pretty exciting. So always new stuff. I'm always tinkering. I've always got quite a few things going on the gear development front. And yeah, I'm sorry this went so fast. But when you start talking hunting, I think it tends to happen. And yeah, I'm happy to come back anytime too. And I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'd love to do it again. All right. All right, listeners, that's Brad from Argali. Again, I am not paid to share my opinion of their gear. It is stellar gear. Strongly recommend that you check it out. if you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, share it, and leave the Limitless podcast a review if you don't mind. And with that said, be limitless.